Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Writer's Room. I am your host, the night editor, Kat Rocha, and with me this evening is
J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit.
Night editor, Kat Rocha, and my echo.
And
Buddy Lord.
Ooh, deep and spooky.
Buddy the Lord.
Now, hopefully, our third guest will
Our third writer
will sign in soon. Until then, he is dead.
No, I think he's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah, at least for tonight, he might be dead out with his woman.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's a good reason to be dead. Necrophilia is always fun. So anyway,
I don't want to know how you know that.
Empirical study?
Are these evidence-based studies that we've based this on?
What empirical studies? Well, so to see if William may become undead or be getting better, let's go ahead and start with a question from the room. White Knight Leo asks, do you ever find it difficult to accurately portray the opposite sex? And do you find it helps to consult an actual opposite sex person?
Yes.
Buddy?
No.
No, you don't find it hard to portray the opposite sex?
No, but I mean, I don't know. I have like a high level of empathic accuracy. I'm pretty good at understanding what people feel and what people are going through. And I mean, if I can watch somebody go through a certain circumstance or whatever, then I can recreate most of it and just sort of feel it. And I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I mean, maybe for something specific, like what does it feel like to have a baby? You know? But if it's just like general, I mean, people are people.
So you approach writing the opposite sex as just, people are people.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'm not like, what is it? You remember the character from As Good as It Gets? He's like, I think of a man and then take away all reason and accountability. That's kind of horrible, but it's not like that at all. I mean, I just kind of try to put myself in whatever position I think that would be in. Like when I wanted to write the girls, I just, I guess maybe I did. Because I kind of became like during the process of writing the story that I've written now in a couple of different versions, I sort of reformed from like a typical white knight kind of dude to a little bit more sensible and understanding what was actually going on, behind the screen. So maybe.
I would have to say I come at this at the complete opposite side. So actually, I think this is a great contrast because everyone approaches the writing different. For me, I would say when I first entered into writing stories, I came under the impression that everyone's essentially the same deep down. But after roughly 4 decades on this earth, I've come to the conclusion that's radically incorrect, and that while there is definitely a span and a spectrum of personalities and a lot of crossover, there are some real distinct differences between the two genders and how they interact and interface with the world around them. And that there are some things that you just aren't going to think of. And I would say the most interesting one.
Yeah, but I think in the case of like the new generation, that's because we're not insane.
Well, a really interesting one I would say was that when we were editing a story once for somebody else, there was a line where I forget exactly the wording, but it was essentially one woman talking about having sex with another woman. And it wasn't something I'd written with somebody else. And I had reworded it to, said, well, this really should be, I had reworded it to actually, so it was, she was the first I'd I'd taken or something like that. Because of the wording, it seemed like she was wording it dominantly. And then Kat stepped in and said, no, woman would never say it that way, ever. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're correct. And he said, well, no, the interaction is just different. Also, I had to learn the hard way that I would say the vast majority of women do not speak directly, and that 99% of the time, you probably should come at it from, well, why is she saying that when portraying your character, not just having her come out and say what she means. It should always be from, well, why is she saying it this way or saying this? The other real critical thing that I was one of those things that I wish I had known in high school and college. It would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering, was realizing that female power structures are inherently different. That with men, there seems to be a very well-defined order and sort of a pack dynamic where, how would you describe the female dynamic of most friendships and power structures?
How much time do you want me to take up?
Well, William's not here yet, so we're kind of killing time.
Well, okay.
And the audience may find this, you guys will find this useful, right?
Except for the rare exceptions and, people, you can disagree with me if you'd like, but from my experience, female relationships or friendships are inherently, if not hostile, in some passive aggressive way. There is definitely a hierarchy of the dominant and the submissive friend. Not only that, Buddy, you can definitely, say, again, disagree with me because you have the psychology background. But from my understanding, the rule is typically you have two friends, one dominant, one submissive, or you have the rule of three. And the smart one, sweet one, and then the hoe/bitch really is true. You can break up any female relationship, friendship, triad into the smart one, the sweet one, and then the hoe/bitch.
Okay, let me break in. If I had known this in college, I would have saved myself so much pain and suffering being the poor son of a bitch that got caught in the middle of like the girl I'm with and two other women she fucking hates. If I had realized what was going on here, I'd realize, oh, this is just them being normal. Fuck it, stay away. They don't want to solve this.
I mean, if the movie is to be believed, I've never researched it, then that's kind of the beginning of Gaines' theory, right?
Pretty much.
And economics and everything is because you had the really beautiful girl that if any of them went for her would destroy all of their chances to get with any of the other girls. And so he realized that the only way everybody got laid is if nobody went for her. Because she was the paradigm, right? Like she was the queen bee. And I mean, that is kind of one of the dynamics like you're talking about. You have like the queen bee and then you have like her drones, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, there is kind of that. I mean, guys kind of have that too. I've seen that same thing. You go to a billiards hall, you see like a dude and he's up there, and then you see like his kind of chubby friend sitting on the seat, and he sort of gets the sloppy seconds, That's what he hopes anyway.
But I wouldn't say it's antagonistic at any point. I think in a male power structure,
oh yes, it is.
Typically,
oh yes, it is. That guy
really?
Hates the dude. Yeah, he hates the guy that he doesn't want to be. No guy that I know that, unless it's like one of these sort of like beta simps or something, is wanting to be subservient to somebody, especially not another guy who's a dick. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm willing to like take a seat back if someone's cool or I think I can learn something from them, right? But if this guy's just being an asshole and I know he's just an asshole, but I just want to get laid, like I hate him for it. And there's a lot of that out there.
I have found with passive betas that is kind of, you get the passive aggressive shit and there's a worm tongue aspect to it. But I've noticed if everybody in the room's confident with themselves, everyone fits into their role and that's it. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, but that's different.
Of course, I was, on the other hand, didn't really have much patience for people that were like that.
I mean, that's all different. I mean, there's always like I mean, what we're talking about is there's different societal pressures, right? There's different and that's one of the things that, I mean, like the new generation of girls and everything that they want to fight against, because that's really what they're saying when they say the patriarchies. They're talking about there's different societal pressures and they don't want to deal with it. They just don't want any of it. And I kind of understand it from that viewpoint, but they've taken it too effing far.
I'd be more brutal and say that actually they want all the benefits of it without actually having to earn the respect.
Men don't know what they want. They think they do, though.
No, I'm talking about women.
I know, but chickens
of the patriarchy, they just want to earn their place.
Actually, I agree. A lot of, now this isn't all, but I've noticed that tends to be the most outspoken of women saying things aren't fair, the patriarchy is against me, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, there's always going to be, the exception, but for the most part, it's because they're told to try, or they have to actually work hard and they don't want to. But they think that it comes easy for men, and so therefore they should just be given it. And it's like, no, you actually got to work your ass off too,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. There's a lot. I think that goes a lot of different ways. I mean, you've got guys that kind of do the same thing, right? They're like, I just want whatever this is. I mean, that was the whole thing with the millennials. Was it Simon Sinek had a whole speech, right, where they're like they're entitled, and you always get, what is it, like a good enough prize or something, a consolation prize. You get a just for participation, and then you get into the real world and nobody gives you a prize for participation. It's not okay to not try, and you can't be. One of the most dangerous things that a parent can teach a kid is you can be anything you want to be. That's not true.
I actually agree. I agree 100%. You can't be what you want to be, but you can, if you work your ass off, you can definitely accomplish a lot.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's something that, I don't know, that's more of what we need to instill in those kind of, and I know we're getting way off, but like emotional intelligence, understanding of people, empathy, communication, basic, like sleep habits, and prepare, those kind of things will prepare somebody for a life much better than, I don't know, the kind of BS gender studies and bullshit we're teaching right now.
Well, one thing that, getting back to the portrayal of female power structures and female interactions, just to bring it back around, another thing that I had noticed was when I met Kat, aside from one other female, all her friends were pretty much men. And she was essentially just another dude in the group, but she'd earned her place there. I mean, she knew her shit. She was... she could hold her own at video games. I mean, she did not get offended at the humor. In fact, she could roll with the punches and be just as mind in the gutter as anybody else.
Still can.
You put me to shame. I'm impressed sometimes at just where your mind. Yeah, I applaud it. I if you can make me laugh, I'm very happy about it. But one thing I noticed is when this so-called geek culture became popular, and girls started flooding in. One, they didn't earn their place. Second, they wanted full run and control of the place, including respect. And third was the first person they went after were girls like Kat. And basically, if the girls like Kat did not join their little group at the bottom, they were deemed enemy and just excised. And,
well, yeah, because you had, I mean, oh God, I hate to say it. Like I'm not going to say names, okay, but there's just this person that I do follow on Twitter, more almost as like an academic exercise than anything else. I just kind of wanted to see where she's going with what she was doing. And she is a person who's
you can admit you follow Gail Simone.
No, that's not her.
But just consider it an anthropological study, or watching somebody in the wild.
Well, I mean, honestly, most of what I do when I get online is I like to people watch. It's an easier way to people watch than to go to a fountain and watch people nowadays, because everybody's scared and thinks you're a creeper. You know what I mean? I walked outside the gym today and there was this girl walking ahead of me, and I laughed because I was listening to my headphones, right? I'm listening to this book called Why We Sleep, and he was talking about something, and it was funny to me. And I laughed, and this girl in front of me stopped and yelled. And I was like, what?
Yelled at you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's happened.
Really?
It's amazing how many chicks are convinced everyone's either thinking about them or talking about them.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
very true. That's
it's
100%
amazing.
true. I'm just shocked that she actually like got mad at you. I mean,
Yeah, just turn around like, what are you yelling at? Why are you following me? And I'm like, I walked out of the mall because the gym's inside of it, and my car is there.
maybe that is a gender difference, because I've had that happen too, where I've been listening to a book on tape or something like that, and something, or a podcast, and something funny happened. I couldn't help it. I laughed, and some chick she'd give me a dirty look, but I've never had anybody yell at me. So that's pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny that she yelled at you, but it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, I was just like, I wanted to be like, not everybody is out to get you. But anyways, yeah, it's just an easier way to watch that kind of thing. But anyway, so this girl's like, she's basically copying the model, or she and her friends are basically copying the model of Critical Role, which is Critical Role. Like, okay, everybody can say everything they want. They're nice, they're sweet, they're blah blah. They're pretty people that play Dungeons and Dragons. That's how they got popular. I don't care what anybody says. They are beautiful people.
I know. I am.
That's it.
I am a pretty man.
My dice are pretty.
There you go. You guys are both beautiful. We love you both.
Aww.
So, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And this girl's like, I mean, she's a gorgeous. She was literally the prom, her prom queen, right? She said that a couple of times, and I'm like, you couldn't be any more transparent. And like, I'm the type of person that, I don't know why, but I have an adverse reaction to marketing. When someone markets to me, you've lost me. If I feel you're actually marketing to me, I don't like it. The best thing you can do for me is to be earnest. If I have limbic resonance with you, then you'll get me to buy something. If I have no limbic resonance and the only thing that you do is like market to me, you're done. I'm walking away.
Okay, so should we?
Oh, I just wanted to put that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to answer it.
No.
Well, I'm looking at the chat, and I'm seeing that the most common trait that men in the maybe some women too are saying is that busty is a great quality, and that I'm serious. That keeps coming up in the chat.
Well, that means you have a big heart, right?
Actually, I have some fun nurse stories since someone actually asked what his nurse should be portrayed as. He is a nurse character. Any suggestions? Every nurse I've met is insane.
Actually, I think that was Owen you're talking about.
Yeah.
Owen, I'll be honest, when I first saw your comment, I thought you were talking about Nurse Joy from Pokemon.
Oh, wow.
But no, tell your I mean, like, I've got nurse stories, but I don't think any.
Let's see. I've met nurses that were like just nurse ratchet, horrendously vile people. I've just been fortunate never to get them in the hospital. I've met people who were professional nurses outside the hospital that was like, my God, I would never want you to touch me. Much less have you stick a needle in me.
Strangely enough, I've met, we used to hang out with a woman who I would have said, she was the saltiest, person in the world, but she definitely did have the right nurse personality of, she'll put up with your shit to a point, and then she'll politely tell you to go to hell while she's taking your temperature.
Now, on the other hand, all my hospital experiences have been good. When I had my appendix out, when I had a bullet pulled out of me, any number of things. My experiences with nurses have been nothing but good in that regard. Now, I will say that by and large, apparently I'm a wonderful patient. Apparently, when they get the painkillers in me, I tend to continually thank the people for saving me and not killing me. Seriously.
Oh,
You're the best patient ever.
You're going to tell the story of you waking up?
I was getting
there.
Apparently, when I came out from surgery after they took the bullet out of me, I actually was wanting to shake all their hands, even though I could barely raise my arm. I don't remember doing this, but apparently I'm a very nice patient.
He's very congenial, guys.
The other one was I got my appendix out, and painkiller drugs and anesthetics have never lasted too long on me, so I was coming out of it very quickly. And the nurses didn't know that. And they watch you as you're coming out of surgery, as you're waking back up. And I hear the two women talking, and the two nurses, it was really weird hearing them talking, realizing that they were referring to this, well, who's your boyfriend tonight? Well, this one, I've got a good Irish boy, Finney. And he goes, well, who's your boyfriend? Well, I've got, and they're talking back and forth. Now, granted, I didn't give a shit, but then I realized they were talking about looking at our junk.
Yeah, they were apparently, as Ishii shared with me, they were comparing dick sizes of the guys that they were watching.
And I have no idea about the other guy next to me, but it was a very weird experience coming out of it. And then I kind of started looking around. I was like, oh my God, he's awake.
I had a similar
really?
I had a similar kind of thing when I was 16. I had an incident, and I ran a truck into a tree firewall. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, which actually ended up saving my life. The engine came through the firewall into the seat, and I was thrown outside. I would have been thrown outside actually, but the gear shift, the knob broke off, and the gear shift itself went into my left knee and ripped it open. But it kept me in the truck.
That's exciting.
And so, well, I was a curmudgeon little bastard, actually, because I woke up, I was bleeding, I had these ballooned jeans full of blood, and I'm like, oh, I need to go to my friend's house. And so I started walking, and I realized at some point that my friend had bulldogs, pit bulls, and he literally fed them bloody meat. And I'm like, this is probably not the best idea. And I just collapsed right there.
Oh, Jesus.
So a nurse found me, and I was, I don't know, she should have just left me there. I was such an asshole. She was this rather heavy set lady, and her, she had red hair, glasses, kind of frizzy. I mean, she had just gotten off of work. She was like a I don't know, not an RN, but one step below or something. And she was trying to take care of me, and she had called the life flight services for me. And all I could say was wow, you're kind of fat. I was so bad. But then it was life flighted, and while I was being life flighted, I remember coming in and out of consciousness, right? And the nurse that was the I don't know, surgical tech or whatever, the high level nurse that was in the life flight with me, was talking to her friend about how she had slept with the doctor and he paid for her boob job.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I was like, really?
Okay, before we proceed, audience, we were going to talk about writing about the back cover blurbs for your books.
Although I did have a follow-up to this current conversation that I wanted to
But
bring up.
since William isn't here and we've already got a topic, should we proceed to continue to answer questions about portraying female characters? And I'll just change the title of the podcast later. So answer that and we'll keep talking.
So yeah, and I had the other incident that I had that was kind of funny was actually probably the worst first date ever. I went out with this one girl. We were hooked, we were put together by friends, and she had that I didn't know about this, but she had an incident 3 years earlier where she'd fallen off this ladder and hit her head 3 times because she was painting a house, and she hit her head three times on the way down to the ground, right? So she had actual brain damage. I didn't know anything about this, wasn't sure what was going on. She literally she started eating pasta and collapsed. Hit her head three times on the way down to the ground.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Pasta was that bad, huh?
Okay, yeah. It's one of my
William has appeared. So
hi, guys.
This is a wonderful thing. As early reported, William had been dead, but he has risen from the grave.
He has risen.
Yes. In 3 days, just like our Lord and Savior Kanye West.
So let me finish this because this is kind of funny. I don't know. It's horrible but funny.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Oh, you still going?
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
sorry.
basically, she collapsed, and then I had to actually administer some really basic first aid, and then there was an EMT, thank God, and so he was doing some stuff. Then we had to get her to the hospital, but everybody kept asking, "What are you to her?" Right? And I'm like, "I'm a date." They're like, well, she's got nobody, so she probably wants something familiar. So I was for the entire night I was carrying her unmentionables and her because she had pissed herself, and so they were like, here, hold this, hold this, as in hold her, while they were taking her clothes off and putting her in the gown, the gowns and everything. And I was like, great, this is a wonderful first date. I've seen everything that I might have wanted to see in the way that I never wanted to see it.
Oh, wow. Probably in the most unsexy way possible, too.
I would say the other thing to realize about nurses, just real quickly, is that these people go through a lot of shit. There's a large apparently a large number of people will blame the nurses for the pain they're going through while at the hospital, and will view them as sadists. And there is also a certain number of people who apparently enjoy abusing them while in the hospital. My grandmother being one of them. But so you realize these people probably have incredible patience.
Oh yeah.
So William.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here. What are we talking about? Nurses and doctors?
Well, we were going to talk about composing the back cover blurbs to describe your story, but we kind of got off track and have been talking about writing female characters. Would you rather talk about that?
Well, my main female character spends most of her time pretending to be a boy. I may not be the best person to talk to about female characters, but I'd be happy to share what I do know about it. I think
actually, I'd say your reasons why she pretends to be a boy makes you perfect for this conversation.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, for those of you who haven't read it, she dresses like a boy because she hates...
Wait, tell them what the name of the story is first.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's called The Crimson Spark. It's by me. The main character of the book, one of the main characters, is a girl who dresses like a boy, and this is because she is very traumatized, and she hates being a girl, and she hates girls. She hates women. She's basically gets thrown around a lot. She's an actual misogynist, and she gets paired up with a mentor that is
female misogynist.
Yeah, she is a female misogynist.
Those aren't as rare as you think.
Yeah, like 90% of women hate all other women. I learned that from doctors.
That's very, very true.
But yeah, no, she gets paired up with a soldier who is female and also very feminine, and the clash between the two of them is sort of the beginnings of her character arc throughout the entire series, but especially in the first book, where she sort of comes to terms with the fact that maybe she's got a warped view of the world.
The original question, William, was how do you approach writing members of the opposite sex, and have you consulted members of the opposite sex for help at all?
I tend to not consult people just as a rule. Like the whole idea of sensitivity reading and whatever, it's never really clicked with me, just because I think everybody's experiences are so different that it doesn't really line up all the time. But in creating Nia, I think I found a pretty good balance of representation and also composing a character that had struggles and made sense. I wanted to write about this kind of person for a really long time, because I've encountered people like it before, but I never really thought that it would be a good idea, especially like in the current climate of hashtag own voices and stuff like that. So it can be a little intimidating to write somebody of the opposite sex, especially now that you have everybody else breathing down your neck about, You're
not a woman writing about a woman?
Yeah, exactly. And, contrary to popular belief, I am not a cross-dressing little girl. And I think I did a decent job bringing her across. I would say the first step to writing really good female characters is to not be afraid to make them people, flawed, struggling people. I think the biggest mistake with female characters right now is that they are not challenged and therefore not interesting.
Everybody has Rhea vision.
That's the obvious example. But every female in Marvel Comics right now, most protagonists in these girl power movies that are coming out, they're all kind of afraid of putting someone up against obstacles, be they real obstacles or obstacles in your mind. Your personality having flaws that prevent you from.
I don't think they're afraid.
You don't?
No, I don't think it's fear. I think they want to be. I don't know. Maybe this is petty, but especially like for Rey, just everything they had her do, basically everything a guy did, she has done better.
Yeah, that's true.
Every single guy. And I think like what's really horrible about that, in my personal opinion, is that all that you do when you diminish or when you give everything to one character is you diminish the ability of anyone else to contribute in a meaningful way. I mean, can you name anything that anyone, and I mean, like in the first, with Luke and everybody, Luke wasn't a good pilot, right? So you had Han.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great leader, so you had Leia. You had these kind of like they needed everyone. What do you need with Rey? Like it could just be Rey. Everyone else could just go home. Which
is funny because I think of the three, she's the one I like the least. I find myself kind of drawn to Finn in particular. I don't know why that is. I think it's because he's secretly the main character.
Well, Finn struggles. I mean, you are introduced to him in his very first battle. He's basically been given shit work. He's been shit on his entire life, and then he's dropped into the middle of a fucking firefight, and he's told to kill people for no reason, and he's never killed anybody before. I mean, he starts the story at probably, it's always good to start your characters at a low point.
But then they screwed him up because then he just killed people wantonly on the other side. He's just like, yeah, boom, 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 boom. This is so cool. What? Where'd the struggle go?
For sure. I agree with you. I think that the characters we latch onto are the ones who are presented as having struggles, and it's not something that a lot of current writers are doing. I don't mean to throw shade on any of them right now. It's just something I've noticed. They just are not writing. Like every time I see like a new female character being introduced, I get this little cringe because I'm always suspicious that they're going to mess it up because so many people are doing it poorly.
Well, actually, going with that, we have a question from the floor. This is from Elton Borges. I'm sorry, Elton, if I slaughtered your name.
Yeah, Elton, is it Borges or Borges?
Yeah. You think the guy brush paradox, that means a female character can't suffer the same level of ridicule, physical abuse, and disdain as a male character, can be challenged?
Oh, sure, it can be challenged. It's just going to upset a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think not to keep plugging away, but Spark, the protagonist, the boy and the girl they have both sort of suffered the same traumatic background, and they go through similar struggles through the whole story. They're both abused, they're both disdained, they're both ridiculed. And I don't think that that's something that we should sort of shy away from. I think that makes characters very interesting.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before. Like that's the only way to make characters interesting. You have to have struggle. You have to introduce, conflict. I mean, that's all it is. There's a want from, you have a person. The person wants something more than anything else. There is opposition to that want in the form of environment, antagonist, or whatever. And then you go, and that's the story. And that's it. So, I mean, without struggle, what do you have? You have a documentary. Who the hell wants to watch a documentary or read one? Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Even a documentary can follow the growth and change of a person. Yeah, exactly. I think with these Mary Sue characters that are perfect from the start, what you're seeing is boredom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the case of Rey, like, I mean, I don't want to get on that too much. But I mean, it's like she's awesome at the beginning. She's awesome at the end. It's not really. There's no.
It's not an arc.
Yeah, it's like straight line. Okay, she's great.
And you've seen it happen to characters that weren't created recently, but were reinvented recently. Like one of the biggest examples, I think, that is just awful is what they did to Lara Croft.
Oh God.
Yeah, like Lara Croft for a long time was this sort of she was confident and she was flirty and she was adventurous, but she would go through these really interesting, like weird Indiana Jones adventures. It was a cool series for a while, but when they brought it back, they made her this sort of quavering, limp, shrinking Violet in some way tried to pass that off as being more progressive. I don't understand it, but
She's not showing her boobs.
What boobs? Did she
Exactly.
have boobs?
Boobs are haram. You can't have them in video games anymore.
She had boobs at the beginning. She had boobs, and she moaned every time she got healed. I know that my friend actually like put the code in for like unlimited healing, and he would just put that shit on auto. And so she just went through the game like as she was jumping, she'd be like, oh, and then
Did he do it with the code that made her naked as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Totally had to do that too.
And I'm like,
Then
really, dude?
one
And then he would have her
finger.
climb, like, you know, she'd climb the vines. He'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, you're fucking sick, dude. But I agree with you. My characters in Sins, I mean, there's 3 main female characters, and they all have major growth and they all have major weakness. You know, you have from, you know, I mean, there's actually Exevius, who is my colorist. He also does some character designs for me, and he put out some pencil sketches on Twitter a few days ago. He put one out of Kaylee, and Kaylee is the younger daughter of one of the main of Nikki Caramore, and he was like, you know, he put it out to her Facebook, and somebody said, "What's her kryptonite?" And I'm like, well, she's got a lot of different weaknesses. You know, I mean, she's got the Fae themselves have a weakness. She's too prideful. She keeps doing things, and she gets her family in trouble all the time, and then they have to pay the cost for what she does. She also, you know, has this energy that consistently goes through her, and it's like a sort of like a metabolism, but it's a magical metabolism. If she burns all through it, she'll die. You know, she can also lose herself to her own shape changing, and you know, then she and her sister are always kind of at odds. There's just a lot of different, you know, psychoactive, psychodepressive, environmental, all different kinds of weaknesses that she has. And I think people are afraid, or I wouldn't say afraid. They just like, in the case of today's writers, I think they just want to make they want these feminists to scream Yaz Queen at them, you know. So they make the female protagonists as ridiculous as they can.
Well,
And you know, there have been female protagonists that have been acclaimed throughout the years that have been, you know, reinvented for current year, and they've been basically neutered. They're not interesting. They're not engaging. It's terrible. Like, Marvel Comics is really the biggest example of this I can think of. Characters like Jessica Jones, Jessica Drew, that sort of thing. They've all come back, and they've all been stripped of whatever made them interesting.
well, I think also there's a problem where I think sometimes writers are actually kind of scared to put female characters up against the same obstacles that they would a male character. What I mean by that is one of my favorite writers of all time, Garth Nix, his Sabriel series. When I read it in high school, I loved the entire series, and the 2 main characters, Sabriel and Lariel, who couldn't be more opposite, polar opposites of each other. Sabriel was, you know, confident and smart and could think on her feet, and Lariel was a shrinking Violet and was, you know, scared of her own shadow and constantly feeling like the world had taken a big dump on her head, and that she was never going to amount to anything. You know, total opposites of each other. But the problem is that as I got older, I realized both of these characters that I loved and thought were very deep and nuanced when I was younger and in high school and, you know, not very worldly, both of them were Mary Sue's. And what I mean by that is, again, Sabriel, she's strong, she's confident. Yes, she does go against adversity, but she's been given all of the tools to face that adversity throughout her entire life, so that when it does actually come to fighting the undead or, you know, making split-second decisions or other things like that, she already had been prepared for that moment. So it really wasn't that hard for her, especially when she had to like lose her father. It was sad, but it wasn't a hardship for her. Where Lariel, when she is finally given a task to make something of herself, everything is done by other people. Other people do things for her. Other people help her on the journey to the point where she's basically handicapped and she doesn't grow as a person. And then at the end, you're just told she grew as a person. You're told that because of her struggles that she's become a better person, but you never actually saw it. And I think that that's a big problem with a lot of these characters, is that sometimes I think writers, and they probably don't even realize they're doing it. They don't recognize that they're not giving these characters a chance.
Well, Garth has gotten pretty woke in recent years.
Yeah, but these were written 25 years ago.
So we've got a question here from Aged Boomer.
Okay, the Aged Boomer asks, I'd like to learn more about Soyboys.
Well, you get stalked by them. What would you say about Aged Boomer's question? What would you say about Soyboys?
I ignore the shit out of them.
They look human.
Yeah.
They look human, yeah. They are not human though. They don't know their soy.
I would say that a lot of Soyboys operate off the premise that, or realization that they're never going to be able to compete against more competent males, be that successful, better looking, more likable, you name it. And that underneath it all, there's a really deep-seated resentment against women for that. So that most of them, I would say, are closet misogynist, sexist for the worst kind. On top of that, I think they also work off the notion that, oh, well, if I kiss a woman's ass and if I act more feminine myself, she'll like me.
Have you ever had to write such a character?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Have I?
Well, just bringing it back to the main topic of the show.
You're my editor. Have I ever written one?
No.
No.
You've written alphas and omegas. I don't think you've written betas like that. How about you guys? What are your thoughts?
I think...
Isn't his, wasn't that your leader's guy? Isn't he kind of a beta? Like your antagonist, second in command or whatever?
Oh, the William, the bug guy.
Oh, Pluto? No,
Yeah.
he's kind of as we later discover, he's a bit of a lady killer. The mentor character, however, is sort of this spurned beta. I don't want to call him a cuck, but he is kind of a cuck. He's and he affects this fake personality. He affects this kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi-esque mentor personality when he's actually a very insecure, very immature person. I think that would be the closest I've written.
What would you guys consider like Starscream?
I would consider Starscream, depending on his portrayal, because there are multiple, keep in mind that, as...
Original G1 Starscream.
Original G1 Starscream is essentially someone who resents the fact that he's smarter than the brute that runs the Decepticons and has a burning desire to stab him in the back and take over, but inevitably... that big alpha brute named Megatron is far too tough. He's just unstoppable. And eventually, time and time again, Starscream's forced to either eat dirt or die. So really, I would say he's the precursor to a Columbine personality.
Ooh, it's a really interesting take on it. I've never thought of that before.
Because I wouldn't really say he's necessarily a beta, because, I mean, the guy, or the robot, has got balls enough to shoot Megatron and try to kill him multiple times to his face and his back. And yet he's still more valuable alive because he's too fucking smart.
Well, it's kind of like The Witcher, right? Like, I mean, I learned to live with them so that I live.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, he really isn't a cuck in that regard.
Okay.
Really, he's just someone who's in the most unfortunate place of being a thinker among a bunch of Klingons.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So you think he's an intellectual in a bunch of like physical guys?
Well, he's a clever bastard, yeah, but yeah, he's definitely not the strongest or the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely has a very, very angry, sadistic streak because of that. He's very angry.
Are you likening him to that episode of DS9 where Quark was
No,
put in
because
with the Klingons?
Quark was completely confident in his ability. He had no doubt about himself.
Mhm.
There was no resentment in Quark being among the Klingons. It was essentially Quark realizing that it didn't matter that he was one of the best in his field and that he was the smartest guy in the room. All of his gifts were worth fuck all to these brutes who could probably squish him under their boot in a second. And I'm sure a number of us have been in that situation. I mean,
Where you just had to eat
that
it.
moment in DS9, if you guys know what I'm talking, have you seen the episode where Quark finds himself trying to explain to all the Klingons economics? The Klingon High Council?
I've only seen Voyager.
Okay.
You're dead to me.
I know. Sorry.
I'm playing.
Yes, Kronk, you're also right. Starscream was a total fucking narcissist. But no, there was this episode of DS9 in which Quark, I forget why, he ends up, for whatever reason, marrying a Klingon.
Yeah.
And he's called before the Klingon High Council, and he's trying to explain to them how they're all being ripped off, and economically they could be saving money, and that their notion of always going into battle first is actually costing them a lot of money. And he's showing them figures. The Klingon High Council is all just looking at him like he's insane, and they're confused, and they're getting more annoyed with him. And there's this realization where he's like, oh shit, it doesn't matter how good I am. They're going to kill me if I don't get out of this quick.
Yeah.
And I'll be up front. I'm an intelligent guy. I'm only 5'6". I've been in that situation. I relate to that situation.
See, I'm the dumbass that gets in a fight anyway.
I did sort of wonder about my protagonist drifting too close to being like that, like soy-ish. But then, I mentioned this to Kat, and then she's like, well, your protagonist is 12 years old. And I was like, well, yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, that isn't. Realize another thing about Soyboys is there's a driving evolutionary principle, and I think it's what, I forget the actual term, but scientists literally call it the sneaky fucker. It's not the actual term, but that's what scientists
Oh, yeah, the camouflage as a member of the other sex.
Yeah, and they're the weaker, more effeminate males of a species will literally mimic, down to their genitals disappearing, mimic females so that they can get among the females, and while the alpha is away or is outside guarding him, he can rape them. That is what we're seeing with a lot of these soy boys and trans.
I was about to say, I mean, it comes down to
that.
The law of emotional diffusion.
Rapists.
The law of emotional diffusion comes down to, the old saying, for love or money, and like, you just break down for love or money. I mean, they're both incentives. One's emotional, one's physical. That's really all that means. And so you're like thinking about it, it's like, okay, why are these people doing, like, what is a soy boy? Okay, what do we think of when we say soy boy? We mean this like sort of like beta personality, which, I mean, they'll tell you, oh, well, beta and alpha doesn't exist. I don't care what you call it banana. Okay, I really don't care. It exists. There are some people that are just more charismatic and can hold a room better than other people, or just get more attention or whatever. They just have an easier path in life. That's just what it is. So these are the people that kind of take that step back. And, like Ish is saying, normally, because there is a natural drive and level of competitiveness within, anyone, for them to have to take a step back all the time and feel inferior makes them angry. And so then they sort of, sublimate themselves to the opposite sex, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be your best friend. You see it a lot of times where it's like they do the sympathy thing. That's a big deal. You ever seen guys that do that? Like, they lose somebody or something's happened, or there's always something sad and you have to help me. And they're always asking for help. It's okay to ask for help. Don't get me wrong. If you need help emotionally or something, ask for help. Okay. But there's a difference between when you're like really at your wit's end and you need somebody to step in and help you, and you need the empathy of another human being, rather than you want, to communicate with someone and to kind of suck their energy like a vampire so that you can feel better. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And those are the kind of people I believe that we're talking about here, are the people that are like, really, that's what it comes down to is in social psychology, we call this likability. That's an actual diagnostic factor, local likability. And it's robust, but it comes down to being kind, being loyal, and being fair. Okay. The other side is actually popularity. There's likability and popularity is like chocolate cake. Like, it's something that tastes good when you get, on the onset, but it makes you feel bad and you got to work it off, and it does a lot of crap in the end. Whereas likability is considered what they call a celery factor, which is something that builds and contributes to a long-lasting health. Okay. And these people they like basically don't exhibit any of those features. You know what I mean? Because like when you're likable, what it ends up being is that you're doing something for the group. You're doing something for the whole, for the tribe. When you're one of these like feminists that they have now, third wave feminists or whatever you want to call them, the sort of fundamentalists and the Soyboys, they're doing things for themselves. They don't really care about any of these sort of, they don't care about any of these things that they're talking about. They're doing it because they want attention. Look at me defending this person that didn't even ask for it. Look at me. And I think to me, that's the most discernible factor, is whatever they're doing, they're sublimating, they're getting in, they're acclimating to the opposite sex. They're becoming, stepping down to, because they're inferior. Are they doing it for themselves or for the tribe? Because there is like, if I'm a warrior, but you're a leader, like, like X all the time tells me, he's like, I could write, but you can write better. So I'd rather you do it. Or he tells Joe, he's like, I could do pencils, but Joe does pencils better. So X literally does, he could do things. He could be a bigger voice than he wants in the community or but he doesn't, because he wants to help the team,
So another thing I was going to indicate, I sorry if I'm derailing here. Another thing to kind of reflect the inner spirit or soul of a soy boy is, again, they all proclaim to be feminists. They all are white knights out there defending Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn, or you pick whichever woman they fantasize about someday white knighting enough to get in her bed. But the moment a female speaks up in opposition, they are the most vile, disgusting people. Comments of "you should be raped." You imagine it. It's worse. And I've seen that aimed at Kat time and again. And, someone who was a truly respected woman would never do that.
Right, because it's a disguise.
Elton asks, the idea that physical power can easily overcome brains, that is something we do see every day. What do you think is necessary to have a smart taking control? Money? Inspiration?
A lever. I mean, you got to have a force multiplier. Basically, that's what, it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, in the case of like Hitler was not an extremely, physically imposing man, but he was extremely charismatic and he was driven, and he had, what is the Otto brothers or whatever, right? I mean, they were really the kind of the driving force in turning socialism into something that it wasn't. But they used him as the face, and, you look at like Napoleon, same thing. Napoleon wasn't very physically imposing, but he was very charismatic. He was intelligent. He had a certain tactical awareness of it. You know what I mean? And there are different things, but you need basically a force multiplier. You need charisma. You need great looks. Look at Tom Cruise.
Another way that I think this is the route I usually take when portraying this is I guess what the John Galt principle of "fuck you, I'm going to leave and go make my own." With blackjack and stripper poles. screw it, I'll opt out and do better.
Andrew Ryan.
Yeah, I mean that's like in
Yeah,
marketing, that's
exactly.
called blue ocean strategy, which is where you look at the market and you say, well, I'm not going to compete with you. I'm going to do something different. What's kind of funny is that's actually the driving force of capitalism. Everybody thinks capitalism is competition, but that's actually not true economically. Capitalism does its worst when there's major competition. What you need is the semblance of competition. You need something to look like it's competing, but it's actually not, because it offers something different.
Innovation is what you're saying.
It's innovation, but there's a specific term. I can't remember it right now, unfortunately, but innovation is part of it. And what I mean part of it is literally it's a compound word, and innovation is part of it. I just can't remember what it is.
One more, Kronk. I don't think you're Starscream or Soy, because honestly I think Starscream is probably gay and has kind of a secret admiration of Megatron.
I always kind of thought that too, actually, but I didn't want to say anything right now just because, like, I don't want to be the one to bring that up.
Oh, come on. When he became emperor, his cape was pink. I mean,
What did I miss?
Starscream.
I was looking at the cape. I was looking at the crown, but
I wasn't looking at it.
I was looking at the junk.
It's value innovation. That's the word I was looking for. Value innovation, because in economics, there's a specific term called utility, which is what something means to you. And so in order to increase, basically you're finding your own audience, because you need to, the value innovation is where you find a different value within the same commodity.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I didn't really understand when I started writing. Was when it comes to writing male characters, the difference between a weak man and a soy boy, because I used to think that they were the same thing, but Kat sort of pointed me in the direction that no, they're really not. They are not exclusive to one another, and you can have a protagonist that struggles and is weak at times, but that is not like vindictive and manipulative or underhanded. Does that make sense?
Totally. No, that totally makes sense. I mean, you can have somebody who has a weak personality, but they still have the capability of doing good or rising to the occasion. I hate to say it, the quote, soy boy personality doesn't. They don't. They lack those abilities. I'm not saying that's not something that can't change, but because people can change their personalities, but by and large, that is the big difference.
I think one of the main features or driving forces too is that they've essentially failed at being a male in all masculine domains, be it smarts or strength or charisma or any of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, you don't have to agree with me, and please do say so if you don't agree with me. But men and women deal with conflict very differently, and a weak male will still react to conflict in a more masculine way, or a more quote male
this is
way.
actually proven anthropologically. There was a guy, frick, I can't remember names.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like
came out
something.
with a yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Well,
no, I was just going to say that doesn't seem that controversial of an.
No, it's been proven anthropologically. There was a lot of studies done. Paul Ekman, who was very famous. He was the guy that Lie to Me. Do you guys remember that show, Lie to Me?
Yeah.
He was the guy who developed the actual science in real life. It's facts, which is facial expressions. There's over I think it's 5,000 of them, to tell exactly what a person is thinking. He can literally look at a man and tell you if the person's homosexual by the way he smiles.
Ooh,
yeah, it's really scary. But it's actual science, and it's in the FBI and everything else. But anyway, that's proven that men and women do have. When he was going to Papua New Guinea and all these kind of places, he was actually studying other things. While he was learning, he developed his hypothesis about the facial expressions. He was actually trying to learn about the way that they diffuse arguments and everything. And what he found is that men, typically, and 5 different colonies, totally different, cultures and everything else, but they all kind of follow the same thing, is that men, they tend to have handle what we said, like a direct physical response. And a physical response is not necessarily like they punch somebody, but they just talk to them as well. That's what's called a direct physical response in this case. Whereas women tend to poison the social environment that their competitors lie in.
Extremely true.
Wow, what's this sound like?
My last work environment.
I was thinking the entire comics.
Yeah, I know about it.
That too.
It's funny that you mentioned. That reminds me of that old joke. It's like, men beat each other up, but women tease each other until they develop eating disorders. It's kind of twisted.
Yeah, I mean, it was about like if a woman sees that another woman has a guy that she wants in all these colonies, then the woman is more likely to go to all that woman's friends and tell her how horrible she is, and try to make her life miserable and destroy the pillars and foundation that she stands on, so she literally just crumbles.
And that's why I don't think anybody should try to become a mainstream YA author.
Isn't that just like so mean? It's like, Jesus.
Actually, I got one for you. I got one for you. There was a girl that Ishii and I were friends with, and the day her husband left her, she came to us. And, we took her out to dinner, we consoled her, and we asked her, where are you staying? She says, oh, our other friend was going to put her up for the night. So, we said our goodbyes and we asked her, to check in with us to make sure that she was okay. Found out later through the grapevine that night, she and our other friend who she stayed with, they got drunk and basically talked major shit about me and said that the only reason why I was thinner than they were was because Ishii must beat me.
What the fuck?
Yeah. We're not friends with any of them anymore.
Oh my gosh.
But, and it's the fact that they went around and they talked to all of our friends about that. And then they found out that I found out, they were total bitches about it. So anyway, and
I hate to be the one who brings this up.
Okay.
But it's not just characters that are like this, but authors.
Oh, that's true.
And you'll see this particularly. I escaped from YA into the independent market, and I'm very happy about that. But the mainstream YA is predominantly female.
And woke.
And it is the most vicious, backstabby industry I've ever seen.
They are, I don't know, like I wrote when I was kind of like playing around with, do I want to come out and give my real name and be an actual author? I was sending out queries and stuff to some of the well-known agents like everybody else does, right? Open a book, find one, send it out. And I mean, usually they just send you like the same response over and over and over.
Yeah, I don't miss that.
I had one lady send me a response that was like, I'll never forget it. It was basically like, look, your book's good enough, but you're a white dude.
Oh,
yeah, I heard that a couple of times too.
See,
she just flat out
this. I'm not even a white dude, but I have a white dude last name. So,
I had, when I was slush reading for a pseudopod, there was a story that I rejected because, well, quite frankly, it sucked.
What about the toe?
No, it wasn't the toe one. It was not the toe one. Actually, that was submitted for my anthology. But no, I rejected this story because it sucked. And then 2 months later, I heard it on the show. And I asked about it. I'm like, well, so did they resubmit? Because it doesn't sound like they fixed it. And they're like, oh, well, we needed a female.
Oh.
It's like, oh, God.
I think Ishii's found the new weight loss drug,
beat people by mail.
Finny slap a bitch,
We should put that on a bottle.
It's the greatest weight loss plan ever.
Yeah.
Better than the Atkins diet. I'll come to your house and beat you.
You know, it's therapy for him. It's, you know, cathartic for everyone involved. You know, you just got to pay for Finney to live with you for a week, and he just slaps her, you know, he slaps a bitch, you know, all
Well,
week.
that's where all your food money goes.
Poet Scotty. This has nothing to do with anything. I just love this comment. My first and last name is white, but my middle name is Oh Man is black.
White, oh man, is black white.
And you know, it's funny because it's gotten to the point where some people will write under pseudonyms, particularly for certain genres.
Yeah.
And you know, you can sort of see. I'm trying to skirt around this without making any kind of blanket statements, but there's a way that female writers write young men that is different to how male writers write young men.
Let's. I will say it at least. Most female writers, unless they take the time or they actually care, don't know how to write young men, and they write them very cookie cutter, cardboard, what they've been told young men think. Basically, they write very sexist portrayals of
Yeah, I
young
found
men.
that one of the problems with reading female authors is you start to get the feeling they all really fucking hate men or have a very low opinion of us.
Or they'll be cookie cutter and they're there solely for the purpose of relationship. They are there so that the female protagonist can have a love triangle going.
They only exist for the woman. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
How
you know,
dare you do that?
bad boy and you have the good boy. And which one will she meet up with? Will she meet with the bad boy or the good boy? And the development of the bad boy or in the good boy is solely dependent upon how badly the author herself wants to fap off to said character.
I remember reading, like, when I was starting to write, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read a whole bunch of like bestsellers and everything. There's just one, it was like the Bones or something like that. Bones is like a vampire and then his like half vampire lover.
Oh, City of Bones, Mortal Instruments.
No, it's not Mortal Instruments. It's a different one, and but it's like the way they describe the actual vampire. I see Fonzie, you know, from 70 Days, and then like, but what happened? Because it's just so silly. Like at the end, there's this fight. They're fighting a mafia. He has let her feed on him, and for some reason, vampire blood gives half vampires super strength.
Is this Laurel K. Hamilton?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, that is one of the biggest. Oh, sorry, I read the first
it's so
five
funny
books
though
of that
because
series.
he like is kicking butt, and then like literally he just looks at her every once in a while, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like, you know, straightening out his collar, putting finger guns at her, and going, hey.
Pretty much, actually.
So you remember exactly what I'm talking about.
No, that series, the first two books were actually really good because she was kind of keeping it in a more detective vibe. And then around the third book, she realized, you know what? I really want to be writing porn.
No,
I know. Like,
you
you could tell every scene that when they were having this, she was into it. It was like, is this lady getting laid enough? Her husband needs to watch it.
No, either that or I don't know, but they just turned into Harlequin books, and it's like, no,
It could literally be the tagline for the whole genre. YA. Is this woman getting laid enough?
You know, I ain't saying nothing.
It's telling that they write these cold Barry Sue characters too. You know that they write.
It's funny that Sean Gordon Murphy is actually married to a young adult romance author.
Really, the Irish guy who writes Batman.
Yeah.
Oh. Huh.
Young adult romance author. That sounds really pedo.
Romance is sort of become just synonymous with porn at this point, hasn't it? So like YA romance is.
I don't know. I haven't read one, but I mean, from the looks of it, it seems like it is.
Pretty much.
I remember it was like I'm writing a romance, and all it was like, my heaving bosom against your swelling chest, and I'm like, what the F?
Highest selling genre on Amazon, by the way, for any of you aspiring pornographers. in the
Oh, I
chat.
knew a dude that he made like $3,000 a month writing like crazy shit, like, having sex with a pterodactyl.
Oh, oh my God! Do you know that? Remember reading an article about this person. Was that who I'm thinking of? Like the
I don't know, it could have been. I mean, I went when I was in a class with him. We were taking this class. It was like a Harvard giving class on storytelling, and because all those classes have like, all those schools have like satellite shit. You can pay a lot of money and go. I got it for free on a contest for a short story. But anyway, so I went in there and he was like, yeah, he's like, I made $3,000. I was like, what was your last story? He's like, about how to fuck a pterodactyl. I was like, what the?
wow, what? Wow. You gotta admire the hustle to a point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's like, I'm only making like 60 grand a year. I want to make like 120. How do I do that? And I'm like, what?
Well, I think you just need to move on to things more than just pterodactyls.
Where's the
Yeah,
T-Rex?
Like other
where's the
dinosaurs.
Brontosaurus love, man? Come on.
You know that there apparently is an actual fetish for dragons screwing cars.
Hey, get a wetsuit and a flashlight and dive in, baby.
Chuck Tingle, yeah, exactly.
The internet is a magical place.
Yeah, magical.
God, that just reminded me of a book I read where it was a female human male dragon love, and I mean, when part of the porn is that the flesh is being melted off of her arms because the dragon fire is too hot for her. I mean, dude, you're into some kinky, S&M shit there.
I mean, we're nerds. We've all thought about it.
I don't want to watch
Superman having sex with Lois Lane. We're like, how's that work?
So does this dragon person, like, do they like get off watching the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Like,
I have no idea.
I just know that like part of it was also dragon birthing porn. It's like, God.
Elton Borges has another awesome question.
Japan showed that porn can be written with a huge impact, like Metamorphosis. You think that kind of material can work in the West, or we just can't deal with it the same way?
That's kind of a difficult question.
Is he talking about Metamorphosis porn specifically, or?
Well, actually, that's interesting. Do you mean the Kafka Metamorphosis? Are you such similar to, or do you mean is there actually a manga called Metamorphosis?
The only thing Metamorphosis I've seen is the vampire movie with Christophe Lambert, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only person on Earth who saw that movie. So
I instantly want to see that now. I have not heard of it.
It's delightful. It's very low budget, but you can find it on like YouTube.
Apparently, Metamorphosis is a hentai. So
that's an interesting question, Elton. And I would say it depends on what you consider porn. I would say that definitely a fair amount of Clive Barker falls into that category. If you read, not the film, but read the story Cabal, which Nightbreed was based on, it's very clear that it's about sexual deviancy and that's what the monsters are a metaphor for.
But it was also a metaphor for STDs.
Maybe, but it was definitely a metaphor for sexual deviancy. And there are other stories as well that definitely there is a porn element to it.
Be exploring more, because I mean, the hentai, the manga, all that stuff is basically like a comic books or at least a paperback book, right? And I mean, it's graphic, so it's comic or graphic novel, something to that effect, whatever you want to call it. But I think that it should expand in America. I would love if it did. I think it would actually improve a lot, But I think that our storytelling would have to change in order for that to happen. Because I don't know, Chinese, Japanese, all of them, I mean, they come at it from a different angle. I've told people this before and they don't get what I'm saying, but there's peaks and valleys. Like if you were to look at like the interest level, I mean, track like if you could track like the brain activity of somebody, the psychoactive activity of them when they're actually going through a book, there are peaks and valleys, it comes up and down and there's like exposition, filler, all that kind of crap. Whereas I think the Eastern writers, the best ones, kind of try and keep you entertained in some way, every panel, every page, everything. You know what I mean? And in order to do that, and I think if you can do that, then you can do like something that's romantic or pornographic or whatever, that all these different genres that are out there, because then you can tell a story that's still keeping someone interested. Again, it's like I was saying again with the kind of value innovation, there's audiences for this. Obviously, if Japan has an audience for this, we've got to have an audience for this too.
Oh yeah, and it sells. I mean,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But no, let me take it a step further. I mentioned Clive Barker, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
has done comics. Let's talk about novels. Crash. Would you consider Crash pornographic? I mean, it definitely is talking about things beyond sex, but that is a major principle: is people who cannot get off without getting into car accidents,
Mm-hmm.
and then tying that to the guy who made the film Crash, the film version, David Cronenberg. A lot of his work could fall into that category. Shivers is specifically about this parasite that drives people into kind of an orgy-like state, and the world changing because of it, and it's a metaphor. Also, Videodrome falls into that category as well. It really depends, again, what do you consider porn? Yeah?
Yeah. No, I mean, like we just said, the most popular genre on Amazon is romance. So there's obviously a Western market for that kind of pornographic
just imagine
writing.
like seeing that. Boys would buy it too.
Well, then there's, all of the different kinks that are out there. I remember when Ishii and I were still dating, one of the things he would do to pass the time
was
read some weird shit online. You want to tell
I need to give this context. This was before I left the job, but I was stuck in an art directing job. I was an art director, and I would get my work done 5 hours into my day, and the boss basically wanted me to fucking sit there. I couldn't leave. I had nothing to do, and it was strictly he liked the fact that he owned my time. So I sat at the
That's
terminal.
a little creepy.
And yeah, it was creepy. And I just sit there. And
did he ever call you in with a couple
every
of
flash
on the
game
front?
that you run or a Shockwave game gets played out, and then you watch every internet video that you can find, and that gets played out. And at some point, I kind of challenged myself to find the most bizarre fetish stories I could. And I'm not talking fetish stuff that would get people excited. I mean really weird shit. And I think the weirdest fetish I ever came across was a guy had written a story about his wife shooting him with a shrink ray and forcing him to live in her shoe for weeks on end, living on her sweat and toe jam. And see, this isn't hot, but it's like, this exists as a thing.
Why did you have to tell me this?
Because his pain needed to be shared.
Well, because you brought it up.
Yeah.
I had to commiserate. I did not bring it up.
No, I did.
Your wife brought it up.
It's a germaphobe's worst nightmare.
Yeah, and I am a germaphobe, so.
I just remember you called me on your lunch break.
You're not going to believe what I'm going to puke.
You have to help me. Jesus, that's horrible. But I mean, still, I do think that like all of these kind of, obviously if there's a market for it in Japan and China and Korea and everywhere else, there's a market for it here. We need to get over our kind of bias that, the government needs to get off some of these sanctions or whatever the hell they have. And I mean, quite honestly, like people are already having these thoughts and it's not helping anybody. It would honestly, like it's more healthy if people are having these kind of things to have it out in the open. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd say this stuff exists. It's just not people. There isn't the awareness of it.
Well, then, I mean, I've seen, what was it, like Gumroad or whatever? They have a lot of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, what are we talking about here? I mean, I brought up some examples, but
I'm just talking about any kind of like comic books or medium or anything like that, like more graphic in detail that is going to be released to the mainstream and is anything but outside of action, adventure, horror, superhero, like what you normally see. You know what I mean? Because there's hundreds of genres out there that could be explored.
Well, there's Tea House. Or is it tea garden? What's it
No,
called?
it was tea. It was a tea house. Yeah.
Of course, that could only be sold at conventions, right?
Yeah, she did not sell it anywhere. Well, I think she sold it on her own website, and it was a webcomic too.
Mhm.
She published it as a webcomic. Tea House was gender fluid pornography. Basically,
Gender fluid.
Tea House was a brothel. It was a brothel catering to all of your fetishes: male, female, trans, both. Neither, whatever your fetish was, you could go to the tea house, and it was in this faux French Rococo style world that seemed to exist solely so that said tea house could exist.
There's a rodent in the room.
Yes, he is. Oh, did he?
Guys,
have-
don't talk about
What,
Buddy like
you,
that.
you got, what, like rodent ears or something? We got,
No, no.
Oh,
One of. Sorry, our rat Brack got in here,
this
and
is such an insight issue. He rebels against his tyrannical boss by torturing himself, then uses it for fuel.
He doesn't do this unless he wants attention.
he went into the corner and marked his territory.
No, he dropped a bomb.
He dropped a bomb. Yeah, sorry, but the fact that Tea House, it's written by a woman, and it had probably some of the most beautiful pornography I have ever seen in my life. The
Wow.
artwork was absolutely spectacular and left absolutely nothing to the imagination. And it was page after page where it's like, dear God, when is this scene gonna end? And yet I cannot look away.
So
Actually,
short
I
answer, yeah, it does seem like there's a market for that.
Oh yeah, there was a major market for it. Actually, I stopped buying the books because I couldn't deal with the drama. I was like, look, if you're gonna have a brothel, that's fine, but
Oh, yeah,
I
it was
don't
a soap
want.
opera, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't stand the soap opera. That was not why I was reading it. I wasn't reading it for the soap opera.
Or you were looking,
so-
reading it for the big dicks?
Yes. Hey, beautiful men fucking each other in very violent ways. Oh yeah.
You know what? I'm out. I'm sorry. Can't share that with you, but
Good night, everybody.
Sensual. It was just
We're-
very graphic and very violent and very beautiful men. I am so there.
no, Owen, I was just shocked that there was one scene in Guyver, and it was creative. I wouldn't actually say it was a bad thing, but where there's the two Guyver. Okay, Owen's been pushing me to watch the Guyver, which I'm sure you're all aware. It's an anime and a manga, and it's bio boost armor. I guess this is alien armor that kind of has a symbiotic relationship with the person wearing it. And
It's like a Witchblade, but not as sexy.
And I watched, I guess it was called Guyver 2, or it was apparently the very first Guyver ever made. And one guy gets the Guyver armor, and it kind of absorbs around him and gives him like strength and armor and whatever. And it's very run-of-the-mill, what you'd expect from a power-up scene in an anime. And then there's this really hot female named Valkyra. And when the bio armor, another suit chooses her, and when it chooses her, it takes the form of a bunch of tentacles wrapping around her. And the movie actually took the time to show the tendrils going up her anus and vag, and X-raying and showing them spreading up through there and into her nervous system. And then it zooms all the way up to her face and zooms in on her orgasming as the suit bonds with her.
So what you're saying is this thing identifies as male because when it was with a guy, it's like, all right, let's get this over with.
Yeah, the guy was like,
When it's with the girl, it's like, oh yeah, baby, let's do this OG style, low and slow.
So Owen, that's what I found pornographic. I'm not complaining. It just was unexpected.
Surprise butt sex.
I don't know if this has anything to do. We've been so off topic for so long.
Yeah, how the hell did we get here?
We were talking about hentai in the Western
We're
world.
writers. We just digress. That's what we do.
I don't know. Should there be more rated R comics, rated X comics even? Oh, absolutely. Should we get material that is actually good and it's a story as well as transgressive? Absolutely. Are we going to get it anytime soon? Not through the current comics establishment or publishing industry. It would have to be independent.
I mean, it would have to be. I mean, I don't know. Like, you would have to. You'd have to break down some walls, and really, because you're going to take some shit from everybody. That's going to come at you from all sides. You're going to feel like a toilet.
Well, if you're writing books in general, you should learn not to give a shit about taking it on all sides. At this point, in this day and age, it's unavoidable.
Weird.
The back hole.
Just open them holes up, baby.
And they won't use lube.
No lube.
No lube. They will go in roughshod.
Oh, God. You're gonna take it rough, boys and girls.
Okay, do you think? I think it's getting a little tight.
One himself. Huh?
Should we call it a night, or should we just take this as far into the gutter as possible? I'm not sure at this point. Kat, say something perverse.
You got to give me a setup. Wishbone, how about that?
He was just going at it. I was just like, beautiful man having sex with like rough fucking sex. Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so Dan Montgomery says that he has learned a lot here tonight.
I think we all have.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm going to use any of it.
Actually, I was completely disturbed to find out just how much there was a shrink ray fetish in general.
I mean, I've seen like the giantess thing, you know? It's like all these guys that want, or there's two, I mean, there's that, and then there's also like, I remember going into this rabbit hole one night and somehow finding all this porn where these guys would have sex with these fairies that were like 8 inches tall.
That's disgusting.
And I'm like, why?
I know on DeviantArt there was an entire thread that was all pictures of tiny fairies wrapped around huge dongs.
Yep.
So that's a disturbing thought.
Okay, that's it. That's about it. I'm getting the gauntlet. Anyway,
I can't do this anymore.
Gauntlet time. Everything on Earth is going away.
Humanity was a good experiment, but it's now over.
Yeah, it has
no
failed.
light in the world.
It's all dark.
It's all dark.
You know, this is what happens. This is what happens when when some 13-year-old plugs in the cellular Indomini, sets up the basic rules and then walks away. We begin to form, arbitrary complexity, and shit like this happens.
Well, one of the AI experiments was they gave the AI a bunch of money and they said, go out and spend it wisely. The AI came back with counterfeit money, counterfeit ID cards, and drugs. I'm not kidding. That really happened. The AI, they actually put the computer on trial and it's now sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
Sweden?
Yeah, it's Sweden.
I mean, have you heard about the cellular Indomini? Have you heard about that whole thing?
No.
Where they created these artificial intelligence cells, these AI cells that are like, they're stupid. They don't really, because what they were studying is the complexity of God. Like, how smart would you really have to be to create God? And they accidentally came into this thing where they have these cells that are dumb, but they're social. Literally, like, if you put them together, then they begin to form arbitrary complexity and they like talk and there's an empathy. But if they exist so far outside of each other, they literally die. That's how stupid they are. Okay, so they made these things and they started putting them together, and they realized if you put a cluster of these, like 3 or 4 of them together, they'll build an entire colony, and all this arbitrary complexity, as they call it, like just weird shit, evolution, basically, natural evolution will occur. So based on that, they're like, the simulation, quote unquote, could be like a 12-year-old that like just set it on auto and walked away. Kind of changes your concept of God, huh?
Wow.
All right, we're hitting. Hour 30. We're so fucking off topic now. I think we're done for the
But
night.
I
Yeah.
think that we definitely have enriched our listeners' lives, and we have shared. We have grown as people together.
My
Hi,
life,
audience.
my
Yeah,
life was
we have like
You think so?
scarred
You
Will.
are subscribe, Star.
my
We're
life
buying my
was
books
so
on
normal
Amazon.
before this.
See, Will's pretending he's scarred, but really he's a deviant art looking for the.
Yeah. My secret profile is just nothing but like dragons inhaling bike pumps.
Oh God.
Well, maybe we will do an episode where we actually tackle the transgressive and portraying it within fiction.
I think we should actually do an episode that is about portraying adult shit.
Adult situations.
Yeah.
I've actually done it in my book, so why not?
I haven't.
Really? Oh,
No.
well, you're kids.
Yeah.
I have some
Why do-
adults though. Yeah, I mean, I'm down for whatever,
Or at least how you might do so. Not, to be appropriate for your book.
All
We're
right.
all a bit sadder.
We can just how we can you come at it and say, well, if you had to write them as adults, what would they be?
Yeah.
And then Will's head explodes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you guys were talking to me. I'm completely zoned out. Sorry.
I am too.
Okay, guys. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you or where they can find your works.
Can I just like put my link and stuff in the chat?
Yeah, do it.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Will Hastings. For the next half hour, you can check out my pinned tweet. I'm doing a little raffle. You can win a copy of my book, The Crimson Spark. Gotten very good reviews. Everybody really likes it. Second one will be out later this year. You can check out my website, subscribe to my blog, all that stuff.
Check out his website. Go to his blog.
Yes.
Go to @TheBodyLord on Twitter.
Dumb.
Check out BladeNet.com website. Feel free to look at the comic book pictures and sign up for the mailing list. Gray One, speak.
All right. You can find all of my books on Amazon.com or at 01publishing.com. That's a zero and a one publishing, all one word, .com. And I'm still an alien inside, I guess, although I feel dirty.
He's a little bit more blackish alien,
And you can find me at nighteditor.com along with this show and all of our previous shows. So please give them all a listen. Please check out everybody's books. And thank you all very much for joining us this evening. Support us on Subscribestar if you would like to see more content. We are not monetized by YouTube and we don't do super chats. So thank you all very much and you have a wonderful evening and enjoy your Valentine's Day, however you celebrate it.
All right, guys. Good night.
and many